Manny, welcome on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you for having me on your new show. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Awesome. So, how are you?
Good. I've been going nuts actually because we are, 30 days away from system launch at La Tropical, the opening of our new brewery, of our new restaurant and tap room, of our new entertainment community center, but a little bit tamed down because of COVID. And so it's full throttle at La Tropical these days, brewing beer, getting the kitchen ready, furniture coming in, trees going into the garden for Jardines La Tropical land. So kind of nuts right now.
I look forward to it. I think that combo that you have with the garden and the doors to the kitchen area is going to be quite the beautiful space.
One of the interesting things about, and I like to always explain it this way, about the La Tropical projects, that is really three. We've invested in three different businesses all opening at the same time, which is why it's so complex, right? To do it right, is that we have a full scale production brewery. That isn't that interesting in and of itself, but it's interesting in the fact that it's in the middle of the city. So usually, you'll find these industrial breweries as big as ours in an industrial area behind an airport location, et cetera. We're doing this in the middle of downtown. So that in itself is kind of a unique situation. And then attached to that is a restaurant and tap room. That's a slang for a bar business in brewery speak. That is also going to be a central part of the launch, right? We're going to be producing beer, selling that beer to a third-party distributor to get it out to the marketplace for bars and restaurants and supermarkets and stuff like that, while at the same time opening up our own sampling location. That'll be a beautiful tap room, restaurant, and then attached to that, we have another, 10,000 square foot outdoor beer garden, which we're calling Jardines La Tropical, that has a full stage for live performances, capacity for 800 people in the middle of the city. This is a post-COVID, post-vaccine. We're not going to be doing that amount of people now. We want to be responsible. And so all this is opening at the same time. And so, as I was saying, we're 30 days away from that, and it's been crazy at La Tropical.
It must be exciting to be at the verge of opening a business.
It is.
So, before we continue, let's get to know you a little bit. So give us some background on you, where you're from originally.
So, in terms of on the personal side, I'll kind of give you a little bit on the professional side. I'm a Miami boy, born and raised in Miami all my life. I had some moves out of Miami growing up, as well as when I started when I started school, college and business school. But basically, born and raised in Miami. Went to Belen Jesuit High School. We're very well connected in the community with my Belen brothers and friends, and married here in Miami to a beautiful Colombian wife that we've been married now for 12 years. Two kids, an 11-year-old boy, my son Manolito, and Natalia, who's 9. And love being in the city. I've lived in many places throughout my career, and I tell my kids all the time, I say, you don't know how lucky you are that you live in a place like Miami. We're a gateway city with so much culture and rhythm and different styles of food being Cuban American myself, of being married to a Colombian, I get to experience all types of cultures. When it comes time for Thanksgiving or Christmas, the Cubans have their thing, the Colombians have their thing, and so we that potpourri of all that stuff coming together is I think what makes us very unique, and what I love so much about the city. And then add to that we're we're on the water, right? And we have this beautiful weather, and what a great place to live. I love Miami. I really do.
We're calling it the global city now.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
We're transitioning from gateway city to global.
Yeah. But it's a very special place, right? When all that stuff comes together of all these different cultures, with the geography and climate that we have, I think you really couldn't be in a better place to not only live but raise my family and start a new business.
It's awesome, which is what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Cerveceria La Tropical.
Yeah, and then sort of on my professional side, my background is, I tell folks I'm a beer and burgers guy. Oof. So I started my career coming out of business school working for Anheuser-Busch, one of the world's largest brewers in both the domestic and international market. And I was there for probably about 10 years of my career. Early on in my career, and then I left and went to go work with the Brahma Brewery of Brazil in Latin America for a couple of years, and then eventually left the beer business and went to go work in the burger business, working for Burger King Corporation. I was the head of business development for Burger King Corporation for many years, and then I left Burger King Corporation and ended up as CEO of Burger King Canada. Which was an investment that I made with other investors in acquiring a Burger King restaurants in Canada. And so I've been basically in the burger and beer business all of my career. But throughout that career, my passion in life had always been La Tropical. So I always found a way to devote time to my own passion project, and I guess I'll get into that story in a second. But very much the experiences that I had early on in my career with burgers and beers, which sort of led me to where I am today, which I'm starting a restaurant business and a beer business. All combined in one. Yeah.
Can't go wrong with beers and burgers. I mean,
yeah.
So that's awesome. So La Tropical, right? Cerveceria Tropical is the official name.
Cerveceria La Tropical.
Cerveceria La Tropical.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of background regarding
so I will give you I would say I will give you the Cliff Notes version because we only have half an hour, but
thank you.
You can imagine there's the novel version that I've been working on for 23 years when I started this whole La Tropical business. And the story, I like to sort of tell the story this way. The story starts in 1888 in Havana, Cuba. My great-great-grandfather is a large landowner during those times, and he ends up selling 100 acres of land on the outskirts of Havana to another family called the Blanco Herrera family, and in one transaction, the Cuban beer industry is formed, and the first brewery in Cuba, founded in 1888, is Cerveceria La Tropical. That brewery launches as a small little craft brewery on the outskirts of Havana in 1888. Launches with a portfolio of brands, the flagship being La Tropical, La Original. And by 1960, it grows to become the largest brewer on the island, with over 60% of all of the production capacity of beer in the island that time. The brewery gets nationalized by the Communist Revolution, and all of our families and people who live in Miami are familiar, or maybe familiar, with the Cuban story, a big exile and exodus in 1960 as a result of the Communist Revolution, and all of our families land in Miami. Miami welcomes them with open arms, and they start a new life in Miami. I'm born 6 years later in 1966, and as I mentioned before, I'm a Miami boy. I spend all of my early years in Miami, but really what was left behind wasn't talked about very much, right? It was a new reality for my grandmother and my mother, who was 15 at the time, but at the time my grandparents, who were in the early 40s, and their vision was forget about the past, focus on the present. Let's get back to work. Let's figure out what we're going to do. Put food on the table. Educate our kids. So not a lot of what happened in Cuba was discussed very much. And basically that was the new life. We forgot about what we had and we kept moving forward. In the early 90s, we should call it mid 90s. By the mid 90s, I'm in my late 20s. And I start getting really interested with my Cuban heritage and where I come from and what had happened to the family and why had it happened. Until that point in time, I didn't really care very much, to be honest with you. I was, my head was somewhere else. The headspace was growing up, and you weren't really worried about those things, or you didn't think about those things. But in my late 20s, I wanted to know where I came from and why we landed here and how all this happened. And as I started going through these stories, I started hearing about the stories of my great-grandfather and selling the lands to the Blanco Herrera family and the founding of the Cuban beer industry. And I said, oh boy, how was that lost? How could that have happened? How could something so wonderful that employed thousands of people in Cuba, generated so much to the Cuban economy, it was part of the social fabric of Cuban culture, because it wasn't just a brewery. It was a brewery. It was an outdoor beer garden with a river running through it, Rio Almendares. It was a baseball stadium called el Estadio La Tropical. It's 100 acres of land. How could all that have just vanished? And so I said, I'm going to try to do something about it. And this was now 1998. And basically I mortgaged my house at that time. I didn't have a lot of money to put my words into action. So I mortgaged my home, raised some capital. And over the past 23 years, I either re-registered, acquired, or took the Cuban government to court in about 15 countries throughout the world and took back all of our rights, registrations, and trademarks for La Tropical. And basically that was my passion project in life. And I always tell my kids, one person can make a difference. Just got to get into action, right? You can talk about it all you want, but unless you do it, you're never going to accomplish it. And so, put that together and 23 years of doing that on my spare time, at night after work, on weekends and holidays and so forth. And in 2016, that culminated, I'm now in my early 50s. And I'm saying, okay, great. Over the past 23 years, Manny, you've done a great job of sort of putting all this stuff together, but so what? It's a legal strategy. It resides in a file somewhere. Let's see if we can make this now more of a commercial thesis than a legal thesis. And so I had some relationships in the beer business, and I had caught wind that the Boston Beer Company was coming to Miami and launching a little brewery in Wynwood called Concrete Beach Brewing. And I had a relationship with the CEO for many years past of Boston Beer, that's Sam Adams. And so I called him up. I said, hey, his name is Jim Cook. I said, hey, Jim, it's Manny. We haven't spoken in a while. I hear you're coming to Wynwood. And listen, I don't know if you've been to Miami lately, but you better be thinking of a beer that speaks to the local market. And let me tell you the story of La Tropical, and I think this beer will speak very well to the local market. So I told him the whole story that I'm telling you, and he said, oh, it's a fabulous story. We have to do something together. So I signed a 1-year licensing deal with the Boston Beer Company, and in the summer of 2016, I launched La Tropical as a sneak peek launch at their little brewery in Wynwood. Alejandro, in short order, it became the #1 beer. The launch party which was in May. It wasn't Evento de Mayo, but it was in May of 2016. The line to get in to try La Tropical stretched for 4 city blocks in Wynwood. People waited 3.5 hours to come taste the beer. Huge success. The media amplified that success significantly, and that led to interest from the world's leading brewers, including the Boston Beer Company, wanting to buy the brand. When you do something for 23 years, you don't do it just for the money, right? There's something in it. And by that time, I didn't need the money. I had already made money. And so I didn't really want to sell it. But at the end, I ended up striking a deal with Heineken, where I sold the majority of the brand to Heineken and formed a joint venture, which I now lead, called Cerveceria La Tropical. And so to me, that was really the right way to go, because it ensured that one, Heineken bought into the vision that I had for the brand. And at the same time, Heineken had enough faith in my abilities to give me the responsibility to actually make it happen. And so that's what we're doing. In 2017, I finalized that deal in January of 2017. And since then, we've been in development mode. We acquired almost a 1 acre property in Wynwood, a fabulous property with a 30,000 square foot warehouse on it. And we've been developing a production brewery, a tap room and restaurant, and beer gardens, and we're 30 days out from opening and making my dream come true, basically. A permanent home, a new permanent home in a significant scale for La Tropical. So we can't be in Cuba, we're going to be here in a big way in Miami.
It's an awesome story. This is the song of the entrepreneur. That's how it starts. You gotta, if you don't work hard, you're not gonna achieve your dreams. And that's what you're doing. The entrepreneur, it does exactly what you did. Push forward. And here you are, 30 days. So diving a little bit further into the production brewery, you're the largest, one of the largest production breweries in South Florida, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so that's as we were talking about before, that's really what one of there's a lot of unique aspects of the story and of the development of the site. But I think one of the most interesting ones is that we decided early on that we wanted to develop a full-scale industrial production brewery, not just a little show brewery. Sometimes you see craft brewers, and nothing wrong with that, but it's not the way that we wanted to go. Where it's a small operation that's meant more as a show brewery, and then they may have an industrial operation in a different part of town. We didn't want to go that route. We thought the business model was one that we were going to own our location, we were going to lease. So we acquired the property, and the reason we did that was we wanted to make a long-term investment in South Florida to create significant jobs as well, which we can talk about in a second. So we own the location in the middle of the city. Two, we felt that because of the property we were able to acquire, and due to some of the existing zoning that property afforded us, we had the ability to put in a full production brewery in the middle of the city. And I think that's significant. And when I say full production brewery, to kind of give you an idea what that means, our capacity from a production perspective in Wynwood, expressed in sort of brewing terminology, is about 32,000 hectoliters per year that we can produce out of that facility. Translated into cases, close to 400,000 cases of 24 12-ounce beer. So 24 cans of 12-ounce beer. So that's a lot of cases for a production brewery in the middle of the city. If you look around Wynwood and you look at some of our competitors, they probably their maximum production capacity is probably less than 20 to 50,000 cases. So
you're way beyond that.
Yeah, 10 times bigger.
You mentioned jobs. How does that look like?
So I mean, due to the scale of this project, we're creating close to 50 jobs, of 50? Which half are 50. 50.
50.
50. Yeah, of which I'd say almost half are management level jobs, and that involves everyone from brewers to sales personnel, to marketing personnel, operations personnel, front of the house personnel in terms of food and beverage general manager, chefs, entertainment folks to manage our stage and production that we have on site.
So let's talk about the beer that you're going to be producing. What type of beer is La Tropical? Can you make multiple types? So how does that? What kind of beer?
We'll make being a craft brewer, we will have a portfolio of close to call it 15 plus, maybe even 20 beers available for consumption. The vast majority of those beers will be available in the tap room. We have to call it a barbell strategy. So on one side of the barbell is what we'll call the more complex and craftier types of beers, double IPAs, stouts, barrel-aged beers, etc. And then on the other side of the barbell, we're going to call it our commercial beers, and this is sort of the lighter side of craft. These are more drinkable lagers and ales and stuff like that. So on the commercial side, you'll see we will lead with our flagship brand called La Tropical, La Original, and this is the first beer that was ever produced in Cuba. Our formula goes back to 1888 in terms of how we brew the beer. We've created a new brand on the commercial side that we're calling also Nativo Key. Nativo Key is a session IPA, so this is a lighter, more refreshing IPA that's made for the South Florida market, where it's very, very hot. And then we also have a light lager that we're launching as well, called La Flaca, with only about 86 calories and 2.5 grams of carbs. So those are the commercial beers that our customers will see out in other bars and restaurants and hopefully supermarkets throughout South Florida. But when they come to the brewery, they'll be able to experience not only those beers, but also more of the specialty beers that we'll be brewing at La Tropical, which include double IPA. We have a double IPA, for example, that we'll be launching with from day one. The name of that beer is called Gumbo Limbo. It pays homage to one of the trees in our garden, which is a Gumbo Limbo tree. And a part of our Jardines series, which is many of the specialty beers that we'll be taking out, we'll be bringing out to market, will be under the Jardines La Tropical label series.
I like that Jardines series.
Yeah, and you'll have every quarter or so we'll be bringing out a new specialty beer with a special label that's different from the everyday label. And will be available for purchase there in the tap room and at specialty retailers throughout South Florida.
I like it. So when I went to check it out, thank you, by the way, for giving me the tour in mid-construction. You have the beer holders, for lack of a better word, and you'll be able to pour the beer from there. Can you in the bar?
So that's I'm glad you brought that up, because that's sort of like one of those crazy ideas that ends up actually being a pretty cool idea once we figured it out. Is that it's good. So let me step back a second. I had never designed a brewery before, and that was good because I'm relying on a lot of experts to advise me on how to design a brewery. But, when you rely on experts, they always want to design what they've always designed. That's why they're experts, because they do the same thing over and over. For some guy who never had designed a brewery, I came up with ideas that, they had never heard of. And one of the ideas that I came up with was, man, as a customer, why is it that I have to be served a beer in a brewery from a keg? The brewery's right there, but just pour it out of the tank behind there somehow. So I kept telling all of the engineers, it's like, guys, in my dream of La Tropical, I envision that our customers can be served La Tropical straight out of a brewery in the tank. Figure out how we're going to do this, but we're going to serve beer from a brewery, from a tank in the brewery. So we, with all the brewing engineers, we kind of just said, man, you're crazy. That can never be done. We're just nuts. It's not going to work. No one's done that before. So, okay, we're going to figure it out. So we did. And basically what we did is that we took these 4, what we call bright tanks, that are 20 hectoliter tanks, basically. And we positioned them half in the tap room and half in the brewery, where this glass that comes and contours around the tanks. And by doing it that way, I had my cake and I could eat it too, which is we had the brewery, but at the same time, we're now able to serve beer straight from the tank in the brewery. And we're calling that experience tank to glass. So when you come to La Tropical and you order a tank to glass beer, you're going to be able to order beer straight out of a tank in the brewery. And to me, that is the most fantastic thing in the world, because the beer can't be any more fresh than directly from the tank in the brewery.
I like that there's glass all over. So even when you're in the restaurant portion, you're going to be able to see through the glass and see basically the whole operation.
Oh yeah, one of the cool things of the design of the brewery as well, Alejandro, is that again we designed this big production brewery, but we designed it with the consumer experience in mind, right? So a lot of equipment that in a normal brewery setting, in an industrial setting, that doesn't have this floor to ceiling glass that we have in our brewery, would have been stuck in the back and stuff. And so we ended up designing this brewery so that we have all of the equipment where you would see a brewer doing his craft or her craft, whether it be pouring hops, whether it be taking samples, whether it be connecting hoses. All that we face towards the customer, towards the bar, and then we put glass in front of all of that equipment from floor to ceiling. So hopefully, when a customer comes to La Tropical and orders their beer or their tapa, they're seeing our brewers and our brewing personnel, interacting in the brewery, brewing the beer, testing the beer, transferring the beer. It's not just going to be a static, brewery with a ghost brewery basically in the back.
Are you going to have the brewers wear traditional Cuban brewing attire?
I don't want to get that gimmicky. They're just wearing a T-shirt, and kind of like a denim T-shirt that you'll see not only the brewers wear, but the servers also, T-shirts and jeans, and maybe a hat like this that I have, a baseball cap. We're very unpretentious, very low key. Obviously the place is not low key. The place is spectacular, but how we approach it and the guest experience, it's hey, we're there to serve, and hopefully our beer is just fantastic, our food is just as good, and you have a wonderful experience hanging out at La Tropical. Food.
You have a kitchen there. Let's talk a little bit about that. What can we expect from that experience?
So that's another unique aspect of La Tropical, and especially of breweries in South Florida. For some reason, South Florida being a foodie type of town, a lot of our competitors that have gone to market have really not gone to market with food in mind. Food has been as an afterthought. They put a beer truck there, or a food truck, or they have someone come in and cater. we decided that we wanted to be a little bit different. I felt that South Florida was a significant foodie town, and that if we were going to, get folks to come visit us and experience La Tropical, and we were going to want to have them linger and stay for a while to really immerse themselves. And I always tell my staff, our aim is to sort of immerse our customers in a cultural experience at La Tropical. And there's a lot of things to, they're going to see this beautiful garden, these beautiful trees. They're going to learn about the history of La Tropical, Jardines La Tropical. They're going to see live performances. They're going to see art, which we haven't talked about. I've hired a local muralist to do these beautiful murals in the garden, outdoors. They're going to see art. They're going to see sculpture in the garden. They're going to witness, this beautiful brewery behind glass. They're going to taste the beer. But food has to be a big piece of it, because if you don't have food, how long are folks going to stay, right? How long can you stay in a place drinking, a couple of drinks or beer? Not very long. You're going to want to have some food. So I decided again that I wanted to make food essential, just as important as beer in the overall offering of La Tropical. And I hooked up with this wonderful couple that have now become very good friends of mine, Cindy Hudson and Delia Shirley. Their claim to fame is Cindy and Delia were the owners of Ortanique in Coral Gables that had been around for 22 years. They also owned multiple restaurants in town, Zest, one of them, and in the Caribbean, on like three or four of them. And I decided early on, I interviewed a lot of different chefs, and that these folks really fit the type of food that we wanted. And what I wanted was I didn't want to be pigeonholed into a Cuban brewery has to be a Cuban restaurant by itself. And so what we did was we came up with what I'll call a Caribbean / Latin / South Florida menu that basically blends all of our cultures into one menu. The menu, and I'll give you some examples in a second, but our menu is tapas heavy. So there'll be small and medium-sized tapas priced anywhere between $7 and $12. It's still very affordable. I wanted something that was affordable, because we're a brewery, right? This is not we're not going to sell $20 drinks, right? That this is a $6 beers and $7 to $12 tapas. So you can linger for a while, and it's affordable for everybody. So some tapas, small and medium-sized tapas. We have about 4 or 5 entrees. So if you want to have a full meal, you can also have a full meal at La Tropical. Our menu is everything from a Cuban sandwich empanada, which is kind of a fun concept. So it's a Cuban sandwich inside of an empanada.
I'm gonna make a note of that.
To a Cuban frita, to burgers, but they all have a twist, and the twist is that it's not served in a traditional manner. It has some type of sauce, maybe there's a La Tropical beer mustard sauce that goes with the empanada, for example. Or there could be we have a churrasco steak, for example, with a tropical chimichurri sauce that has passion fruit. So everything has a little bit of a twist of a traditional favorite, but either an ingredient that you may not have thought of that would have gone with that, or some type of tropical Latin spin to it.
I love it. I love it. I'm making notes. Guys, you guys gotta try that. I mean, I'm just Cuban sandwich empanada. I'm still there. Cool.
Chicharrones, for example, with garlic aioli that are freshly fried, which are just to die for. You like pop them as you're having
chicharrones.
Chicharrones, yeah.
Chicharrones, perdón. Wow.
Pork chicharrones. I also have we have a signature dish that I think almost every table of 2 or more is going to order. we're calling beer can bread. So beer can bread is we bake a molasses bread inside of a La Tropical beer can, and it comes to you in the can. We pop it out of the can, and it's served with guava butter. It's to die for. So the
I have
food,
no words. No
I
words.
can tell you, the food is elevated to the level of the beer, and they're both excellent.
That's amazing. Awesome. So
Yeah.
one thing I remember that we spoke about was tours.
Yes.
We're going to be able to take tours of the brewery when we're there.
Yeah. So as I mentioned that, this is the way that we're viewing the La Tropical site is not only a brewery and gardens and a community type of center for entertainment and arts and so forth, but we're also seeing, I'm also looking at this platform as a way to educate our local community and visitors on the La Tropical story, and how that story also now connects not only with Cuba, or it connected with Cuba one time, but now connects with Miami. And so we will have brewery tours. Those brewery tours will take, we're not going to charge for brewery tours, it's going to be free. But we are, instead of charging for brewery tours, we've decided that instead we want to use the brewery tours to raise money for causes that we believe in. So we won't charge you for the tour. Instead, we'll ask for a donation, whatever you have, $1, $10, 50 cents, whatever you want to donate to our causes. We've aligned ourselves with what I think is a fabulous cause that we're going to raise money for starting from day one. And it's the Fairchild Tropical Garden Million Orchid Program. And
Nice.
So we deal with Fairchild right now, where we're really going to become a very strong partner of theirs to help raise awareness for conservation efforts, sustainability, and this Million Orchid Program, which is like the La Tropical story, because that initiative is about saving and bringing back nearly extinct species of South Florida orchids. And it's a great story in and of itself, because during the early part of the 1900s, as it was explained to me by Bruce Greer, the chairman of Fairchild, every oak in South Florida was filled with orchids. And there were orchids basically everywhere. And because of industrialization and tourism and visitors taking the orchids have gone nearly extinct. So Fairchild has this initiative where they're trying to bring back something that was nearly lost, sort of like the La Tropical story. We're trying to bring back something that was nearly lost, but never forgotten. And so those two causes, just connected so well. And going back to Cuba, our DNA is really attached to the gardens and the flora and the fauna of these beautiful gardens in Cuba, and we're going to try to replicate that as much as possible here. And so anyhow, going back to the tours, we'll be raising money for the Million Orchid Program. People will learn about the history of La Tropical. We'll learn about the Million Orchid Program and why that's important to this community. And we'll give a brewery tour. They'll learn about the brewing process. We actually commissioned an artist. I don't think it was there when you went. This is new, Alejandro. We have a brewery process wall, so we now have a mural that explains in very simple terms the brewing process.
No, that wasn't there.
In an artistic form.
Cool.
Really cool. It's right behind our bar, and so they'll learn about that. And after they finish the tour, they'll be able to sample La Tropical beers, and so that's a big part of it as well.
That's awesome. And you mentioned you're going to be starting January, right? Is that when we're looking? Is that the expected time?
We're right now in the final stages. The interior of the building is done, or we actually the production facility is done. We're now focusing on the gardens, so we're into the landscaping phase of the project, and as soon as we finish that, which we think will be towards the end of the year, we'll be in a position to open in early next year.
Awesome. So I know that we're running out of time, and I have one more question for you. The COVID response. When I visited you, you mentioned that you were doing some pretty cool, interesting stuff for the COVID? I mean, the space is big, which is awesome. You have huge doors that open to the outdoors, and for the weather that we're going to experience, that we're having now, it's great. January is going to be great. What is your COVID response?
Yeah, so we're lucky, in the sense that, as you mentioned, our space, the vast majority of the space is outdoors. We also have the way the building was designed is designed with these glass garage doors that open up the entire building.
Awesome.
We have seating capacity for about 250 people, of which I'd say 75% of that capacity is outdoors. I personally take the COVID pandemic very seriously. I think that as individuals and also as a community, we have a responsibility to do our part to try to make it better until we all have a vaccine. We have made certain investments to ensure not only the safety of our employees, which is very, very important to me, because we have a lot of employees, but also to ensure the safety of our guests. So, we will be following all CDC guidelines as it relates to how we set up the tables 6 feet apart. La Tropical will mandate masks before coming in for all customers. All of our servers will be wearing masks and gloves. There will be a procedure for sanitizing all of the tables at certain intervals. And then obviously washing hands. You also see at La Tropical sanitizer stations throughout the garden and the interior space for our guests to clean their hands. And then finally, we made a significant investment in a UV light system, whereby we're adding UV lights to our air handlers. So that means if you're sitting in an interior space of La Tropical, the air that recirculates inside of La Tropical goes through this UV light system that zaps 99.9% of all known viruses, germs, and bacteria. So we're trying to create a safe zone, obviously as much as we can, to ensure that not only our employees, but our guests are safe when they're visiting La Tropical.
I think it's great. It looks like you're ready. Open spaces, the garage doors, the UV lighting. This is you guys are ready to receive people. I think this has been great. I think I'm looking forward for La Tropical to open, and Manny has been great. Thank you so much. I'm still thinking about the Cuban sandwich empanada. And the what butter? The guava butter, what?
Guava butter with a beer can bread.
Oh my God. All right. Manny, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alejandro. We'll talk soon.